Welcome to The Human Athlete, a podcast about life after sport and how to win it. I'm Jared Markowitz. I started this show because I've always been fascinated by what happens after the final whistle, when athletes have to rebuild purpose, discipline, and identity outside of competition. Every episode, you'll hear honest conversations with former athletes who are learning to lead, perform, and live with meaning beyond the game. Because the lessons sport teaches us can help us all live stronger, more intentional lives. Welcome to another episode of The Human Athlete. Today, my guest is Jane Albright. Jane is considered to be one of the most influential coaches in the history of women's college basketball. A former standout player at Appalachian State, Jane began her coaching career under legendary coach Pat Summitt at Tennessee. She later led Wisconsin, my home Badgers, from 1994 to 2003, guiding the Badgers to multiple NCAA tournament appearances and a WNIT championship in 2000, one of the most successful stretches in program history. Across more than 3 decades as a Division I head coach, she surpassed 500 career wins, leaving a lasting impact on the game through leadership, mentorship, and program building. And I'm excited to dive into her stories, and lessons today. Jane, thanks for being a guest.
Good to talk to a fellow Badger fan. Are we going to talk Green Bay Packers too?
Oh, man. Yes, we can definitely talk Packers. We can definitely talk Badgers. I'm a Badger alum.
Yes.
And I'm still in Madison, so I'm still in the state. And I think I mentioned to you beforehand, but there's going to be a fair amount of Badgers on this podcast, I feel like, because I just have a lot of connections to former Badger athletes. So, yes, right. I'm a proud Badger through and through.
Me too. I root for the Badgers. I've watched Robin's team many games this year on the Big Ten channel, and I watched Greg's team. And, I was up there when Brett Favre won the Super Bowl, or quarterbacked the Super Bowl team. So that was downloaded in me forever. So I bleed red and green here in North Carolina.
Well, we appreciate it. I feel like the Badger fans travel extremely well. You can go, and actually probably one step further, Packers fans travel even more so. Yeah.
Well, it's fun seeing the Kohl Center. When I was there when we went from Evans Fieldhouse to the Kohl Center. And now we took the scoreboard from the oldest field house in the Big Ten to the Kohl Center and put it right smack dab in the middle of the however many $1 million building that was. And it was kind of odd. And now they've got all those fancy scoreboards all around that nice arena. So the upgrades look really good.
That's a really cool. So you were a part of that transition from 1994 to 2003, where the Badgers basketball games were no longer being held in the small arena, because that arena held how many people?
The Fieldhouse was, I don't remember. It was
a couple thousand, right?
Yeah, it wasn't many.
Yeah.
And then we went to 17,000. I remember that because we sold it out. And once we had the biggest, most people ever watch a Big Ten game, it was in that arena when we played Minnesota. And I would say it was probably 4,000 in the field. I don't know. I'm sure you'd have to ask GP Chatter somewhere.
Yeah.
But the thing that people never understood when we made that move was, you would host recruits, and they would come in, they would go, oh, wow, this is really great. For the game day, there was nothing like it in the Big Ten, a place to play the games. But you had to practice there. And so the recruits would come in there and say, well, where do you practice? Be like, oh, well, this is where he practiced too. And they're like looking around like, oh, because it's kind of dungy. If you're sitting there watching the state tournament or someone, I'd be in there, Coca-Cola would drip on you, from the kind of rafter. So it was quite the place, but no place like, and I was actually at one of the NCAA women's volleyball games a few years ago when they went to the I think it was the game that took them to the Final Four when they won the Sweet 16. But really, really nice volleyball arena. So I'm glad they're still using it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's an atmosphere that can be created with the small arena, and just it feels like when you're in there, you feel like you're on top of it.
Yes, you do.
No matter where you sit.
It's loud. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that home environment can just be devastating for an opponent. Yeah. All right. So you started, I mean, you've been in basketball your whole life, and you obviously have a unique situation. A lot of the people who I'm talking with as former athletes, they have, they spent a career essentially in sport and really through a lot of their formative years. And then they transitioned out and went through a pretty large and cumbersome identity crisis and purpose crisis, but then evolved into the next path. And it can be a wide variety of things. I like to say it's sort of a 2D model this way of elevation, decline, and then you turn
Right.
it outside, it's this 3D model where they just go in all different directions. Where I think, and I want to spend some time today talking with you, is I feel like you've experienced that with people because as a coach, for as long as you were a coach, I'm sure, and especially in the environment that you had, it's not the environment now with NIL where kids are transferring
There.
constantly. You got to develop 3, 4 year relationships with girls and got to see them not just as athletes, but as human beings. And then also, I would imagine, kept some relationships pretty strong and saw some amazing things happen for women as they transitioned into their next chapter and be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely very, very, very unique in that is what women do becomes their identity. And not only a great thing, and help teach them that when they lose, when she loses a game, that she's not a loser. But sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had many athletes that
Yeah.
just they changed their major based on the teacher that she liked. One it was going to be English, and then the
Oh,
next year she would take another class, and I'm going to major in that now. So that's how women are wired with relationships. So I
yeah.
think one of the hardest things for any woman athlete, you have your identity in a team also, not just an individual athlete, but you're
Yeah.
in Badger Ball. Badger Ball is my identity. Now all of a sudden I leave and I go, where are my 12 teammates that
Yeah.
cheer for me when I don't make my time?
And it's,
Where are the
and
ones that on the bus after I completely have a great victory and win? Who's there with me to celebrate? And there's no one. It's just
yep.
the world.
Yeah.
So that's another huge adjustment that feels different, and you have to intentionally learn how to navigate that in your life.
Yeah. And so my question to you is, as a coach in that situation, how were you able to facilitate? And then if you did, how did you facilitate ongoing relationships? Because obviously you see girls go in and out and in and out, and you were connected with so many girls on such a deep level, and then they leave your program. Were you able to keep facilitating relationships with a lot of them, or and if you did, how did that work?
Well, I certainly have a whole lot of very deep relationships with my former players. I'm not in their everyday life, but I get phone calls when, something's happened, either a high or a low, or
Yeah.
just to check in and see how things are going. But I think the early years when they're trying to figure things out, sometimes you hear from them more regularly.
Yeah.
Like several of them have come back to coaching. They kind of fought it. They didn't want to be that coach, but next thing you know, they're a basketball coach, and they call you because they need the playbook. Do you still have it? Well, I'm retired. Actually, it's in a box in my attic, but I need the. No, I don't really know that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I can give you an example of one young lady that I coached at the University of Nevada. Was a very successful, very bright young athlete. Got an accounting degree. I could have told you, looking at her, she was going to be very unhappy. But someone had told her, be a businesswoman. This is where
Sure.
you make the money.
Yep.
So
Yep.
she gets a great job. She's in Vegas. She buys a house in Vegas. She's living the life. And she calls me one day and she says, I hate my job.
Mm.
I said, well, tell me about it. She's like, I have to dress up every day, and I'm in my little, it's just, I don't see anybody. I'm not on a team. I need like something else. I said, what do you want to do? And she says, I want to be a fire person.
Mm.
And I was like, well, then be a fire person. She's like, well, you think it's stupid, to leave all this money? I mean, well, you have a house. I mean, you're not going to be dirt poor if you're a fire person. Well, she did. She walked
Yeah.
away from being an accountant. And so I get one of the next calls I got was from the lady with a reference, because wouldn't you want to know why is someone leaving a cushy accounting job, making a lot of money to go be a fire person. And
Yeah.
the lady asked me all the questions, and then she said, well, she'll be the first African-American female firefighter in Vegas. Like, how do you think she's going to do with the men? And I said, she'll whip their butts, what she'll do. And we kind of laughed, but she's a firefighter. That's what
Yeah.
she does. And so it took her, I don't know, maybe 12 years to figure that out, but she's happy now. She works out, she has a team. She's doing very, very well.
Well, and I mean, you said that, right? She's a firefighter, but as was stated, she's the first female and African American firefighter. I mean, she crossed a lot of bridges.
Right. Absolutely.
But those skill sets that she had, that you knew, the tenacity that she had as an athlete, determination, if she wanted it, she wasn't going to get stopped.
And see, Jared, as long as the athletes know that sports are not the end, that they're a means to growing and learning. Sports teach you things nothing else can teach you.
Yes.
Now, don't get me started on today's world with the NIL and the transfer portal, but let's just say, when I was teaching coaching, I felt like I was teaching them that struggle is good.
Yeah.
Wait, I mean, we're ranked in the top 20. You're not going to start your freshman year.
Yeah.
Probably because the person in front of you she's a little better.
Good enough to get the team to be ranked top 20 against.
She's a senior.
Everybody
she's
else
going to graduate, and then you'll be in the lineup. And that's what they could wait a year.
Yeah.
It wasn't abuse. It wasn't like I didn't see how good the person was. Struggle. It teaches you how to work hard, be on time. I mean, sacrifices. All the details. You could do a whole podcast on what sport teaches you that nothing else can, because it's a lab. It's not a book you read. You have to do it every single day. When you don't feel like it, you have to get up and go to practice. I watched a game last night on television. It was a big game, an ACC game, a women's game, and one of the teams just didn't seem like the kids didn't seem like they really felt like playing last night.
Yeah.
And I could just see it in the coach. Like, this is a come on, this is a rivalry game. Didn't really seem to care.
Yeah.
And I remember, it's like sometimes there's a lot of distractions. Always there's distractions. But now in today's world, there's no telling. You get your NIL money, I'll just go play for somebody else. Who knows what's so? But there's still should be education, and I'm going to hang on to it, that there's a lot of great coaches still coaching that do teach them and coach them.
Well, and I think that's the key, right? Is that if the coaches are there, the hope is that something sticks consistently with them, so that they're leaving. Because you're right. I think that the unique part of student athlete, and I still hang on to that moniker too, even through collegiate sports, is that they're student athletes. They're students first, athletes second. That there's so much to be learned with time management and stress management and all these things that are super important pieces that you could easily just skate on by as a general college student, where as an athlete, you don't really have that choice. You have to find a way to time manage, because you have to practice. You've got a scholarship, you've got to play for your team, you've got to do the work, you got to put the time in. Even if, like you said, you're not playing for the team right now, you're still going to be practicing and showing up for games and traveling with the team.
And you know what else? You're studying to get
your
degree when you don't feel like it, because you just got beat on the road.
Right.
Or you just won. I remember specifically, we were in a Big Ten championship race, and we had a charter to Penn State. We lost, and we're flying back, and I was just devastated. I'm like, trying to figure out how it was that we couldn't beat it, all that. I look back on the charter, and all of my players have their books out. They're studying. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, like, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares about your math class? Who cares about your, which is bad for a coach to think like that, right? But I'm like, can we just figure out why we lost the game and study like tomorrow? But you're at the University of Wisconsin, you're studying.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were disciplined, and they did that. And we had great averages, and I was very, very proud of them. But that's a lab right there. You're disappointed, you eat your meal, you go home on the plane and you study. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're studying.
Yeah.
Because you have to get it done.
You gotta get it done. And it's that kind of thing that I feel like a lot of people maybe misunderstand or just have a different expectation. Like you said, athletes picking easier majors or things that are not, as challenging because they have to focus on sports. So they're just not going to worry about that. I feel like there are certain aspects of collegiate sports where maybe that's the case. And even I would argue with, like men's football, right, being the most cash dominant sport in collegiate athletics, that there's some of that, but a lot of it has to do with when they can schedule classes because of practice schedules.
Absolutely.
And I think with the because there's so many different intercollegiate sports, women's basketball I think being one of them, there are a select few universities where they're a very cash driven sport.
Yes.
And I mean Tennessee in the Pat Summitt days when you were coaching with her, and UConn,
right,
in the more recent years, but most of them aren't, and the vast majority of intercollegiate sports aren't. But the demands are the same.
Yes.
They're being expected to do all these things, and they're also a lot of times pursuing really, really high level, challenging degrees.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And they also have friendships, relationships, parents that are ailing.
Yeah.
A dog that gets hit by a car. There's life that you have to deal with too.
Yeah.
And you still have to go out and perform.
Yeah.
And not many people know the backstory.
Right.
Of, when you're watching a kid that's just not having that best night, we don't know it. But that's why I love what you say, the student athlete. I love the name of your podcast, and that was one of my first thoughts about just loving it. We had a triangle in our locker room in the Kohl Center, and on one side, we said person first, student second, athlete third.
Nice.
And so that's how I made my decisions. And I told them that so I would have to make those decisions.
Sure.
Because as a coach, you're competitive and you want to win. And I'll tell you, there was a young lady who's a lawyer now in Milwaukee. I probably shouldn't tell your name, but tell you she's in law, and she was very into. She was a substitute. I think she was our sixth player.
Okay.
And she wanted to join a sorority. And she came in and she sat down and she said, Coach, I want to join a sorority. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the deal? And she said, well, I would have to miss the Iowa game because we have this big thing we have to go to, and it's then. But if you could fly me down to Ohio State, then I would play. That was back when we would go to like we would go to one and then the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a coach, even as a person who loved her dearly, and I would have said, are you kidding me? Like, we're, again, trying to win the Big Ten. You're an important piece.
Yep.
But I had told her, you're the person, student, athlete. So I said, of course you can do it.
Very cool.
She did it. We went to Iowa. I don't remember if we won or lost. We a lot of times we won at Iowa. So let's just say we won. I don't know if we did. Now that we always won at Iowa. No,
absolutely, yeah.
But we flew her to Ohio State, and she picked it up. I wasn't mad at her. She was in the rotation, and look at her. She's a lawyer.
Yeah.
But you can't. That's why as a coach, that's identity too. See, coaches, I had to have an identity.
Yeah.
I had to tell myself. And I didn't just say it and then not tell it, because if you tell somebody publicly, this is who I am, you tell your locker room, you're a person before you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You're a student. Well, I've got to miss to take this exam. Okay. I mean, you said this was important.
Yep.
So it's also a protection for me as far as I know that I have to live up to what I say.
Well, and I think that is a really powerful situation where for us as humans, we have things that motivate us. And when we feel like we have some say in the matter, it's really powerful. And if I were to guess, and you might not necessarily remember or recall, but that girl you're talking about with the sorority situation, she probably, you might not even know, she might have just internally like played harder for you
right
for the rest of her career, because at a time when she thought, I'm not even sure I want to go and ask coaches because I know that it's something that is not right for the team, and she's probably going to say no, and it's just going to cause a rift between us. And then
Right.
you flip the script on her and say, no, 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 I committed to this person,
Right.
student athlete, and therefore you're going to that. You're
Right.
doing that.
Well, Jared, if those of you that are coaching out there, if you can understand that what Jared just said is so true because you respect them and show them trust for this is how I'm developing you,
Mm-hmm.
they will work their tail off for you. I
Right.
very rarely didn't have those kids that, sometimes you had to get them a little motivated. I can tell you, honest to gosh, true story. When I was at Northern Illinois, we went to the Alaskan Shootout 2 times, once from Northern Illinois and once a team from Wisconsin. But Northern Illinois team goes up there to play. We're the only team, I think it was an 8-team tournament back then.
Okay.
In December, the only team that doesn't practice the whole time. Like I basically said, we're not going to go to Alaska and practice. I mean, we're going to go see whales. We're going to go on a whale. We're going to go ski. We're going to go see the glacier. We're going to
Yeah.
go look for the moose. And that's what we did. And we would leave every day. It was light from 10 o'clock to about 4 o'clock. We'd
Yeah.
be leaving the hotel, Well, we made it to the finals.
Okay.
And we're behind at halftime. And in fact, just a little kind of silliness, coaches, we always have that 4 hour before the game starts for the pregame. That particular time, they wanted to sled. We had hot dogs and hamburgers in the cafeteria. They used the things to sled down, and we didn't even go back to the hotel. We just went and put our uniforms on. Now, if this works, you're considered a genius coach, right? If it doesn't, people say, you run a country club type of thing, which has been said about me many times. But this particular team, we're playing Louisville in the finals.
So Northern Illinois versus Louisville.
Louisville, University of Louisville.
I mean,
I'm at Northern Illinois. It's at
you've got to be
Bainbridge.
underdog.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Yeah.
And we're the little school, right?
Yeah.
And supposedly, my best player got up on the thing before I went in there and just cussed them out and said, "You're kidding me. Like, we got all this, and this is what we do. Like, no way. We're winning this. We're showing them." And we won the tournament.
Wow.
I've got a watch to prove it. And it was because of what you just said. So young people can surprise you sometimes. When you treat them with respect and understanding, I think they really give you a lot of great things back most of the time.
Well, and what's interesting about it too is I feel like, so I have a why statement, kind of my why, and it's to lead like a big brother so that people find the courage to believe in themselves. And a large part of that for me is the fact that I have this belief, and it's partially from a physiological, anatomical, biological standpoint. Like, we as human beings have far more capacity and potential than we exhibit.
Right.
When someone, coach, mentor, guide, influence, whatever it might be, just recognizes that in somebody and helps them have a belief about it themselves,
Right.
they in turn can take that and run with it. They're not suppressed by how how far you think they can go.
Right.
They're given the opportunity to go, oh, okay, and then they can take it as far as they can take it, and again, show you things that you didn't know existed, or in that case, have a player who steps up and says, hey, we have more than the tank.
Right.
I don't need coach to tell you all this. You all know
Right.
this. Let's go out there and prove it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to touch on, because you mentioned something before that I found really interesting and I think is a really key piece of this whole thing. You mentioned girls or women specifically and relationships, like with the team and that sort of thing. And you only coach women's basketball, correct?
In high school, I coached volleyball, but I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
Because I didn't know it well enough to coach it. So
you've only coached girls or women?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yes, let's just, to be completely honest, I coached a second grade boys team last year. I was the assistant coach, but that's a whole nother thing. But that blew my mind. There's second graders. The first practice, I was trying to tell them about 3 seconds in the lane, and the head coach comes over and says, "Coach, we don't have 3 seconds in the lane." And I'm like, okay. But yes, women basically.
Yeah. And so I can't imagine you can necessarily speak to coaching men versus coaching women, but you can speak to coaching women really, really at a high level. Um, from a relationship perspective, tell me more about how they perceive that and they perceive the team aspect of it in the locker room perspective. And I'll give you some context. I can't recall a person I've spoke with that one of the things they missed the most when they lost their identity as an athlete, right? Where they make this downward trek. It isn't even so much for them that I'm no longer an athlete. That's certainly a piece of it internally and for themselves. But there's this aspect of I don't have a locker room and I don't really have any way to replace it.
Right. Well, I think that might be the purpose that's in the locker room. Like what's your bigger purpose in life? Like even to get the most of my players, I would if you do any work with values clarification, you would say to them, okay, what are our team values, and then what are your individual values? My individual values were different than someone else's individual values. Like I might value solitude and quiet. One of my players might value loud rap music, but I had to know that about her. I didn't have to change that. But as a team, we had to agree what our values were. Say, for instance, graduation was a key. We had to all agree that was a value. So it'd be the same in your life. Like what do you value? What do you want? You graduate with this degree. You don't have a team. What is your purpose in life? What is it? And that's what, we all have to figure out what it is that, whether it's a man or a woman. Now, men are certainly wired differently.
Yep.
That old book, Venus and, men are from Venus. The way I like to say that, Jared, is if there are 4 women, they're going to go play golf tomorrow, and, Susie calls and says, you know what, I can't go. I've got a cold. I don't really feel good. The other 3 are not going to go play golf. They're going to say, okay, we'll go another time. 4 men are going to go play golf tomorrow. Bill calls and says, got a cold. I'm not playing golf. And they go, okay. Well, they go play golf anyway.
Sure.
Because they really are going to go play golf for the golf.
Yeah.
The women were going to go hang out.
Sure.
So it begins if you're trying to know your identity, what you have to know that. You have to understand, is it going to be in relationships? Is it going to be, you just got to figure all that stuff out, whether it's your faith or whether it's to be a humanitarian or whether it's to be a family person or just, I think in our when we had our pre-call, we talked about a person that had taught me about either being motivated with excellence or joy.
Yeah.
Some of the people on your team are motivated because they want to be the very best Big Ten player.
Yeah.
Or the best ACC player, or the best player in the country. Caitlin Clark probably wanted to be the best player in the country, or maybe the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
But some people just want to play for the joy of it.
Yeah.
And you can't get that mixed up. So it's the same as with your purpose. Do you want to be like the best of the best of the best, or do you want to just enjoy the process of, going to the coffee shop and working with the people that are there?
Yeah.
In cooperation, in the different values and the different ways people get their whatever it is they're getting.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting piece, because when you said that when we were first talking, the idea of joy versus excellence, I think as an observer and a lover of sports for so long, it's almost like you make the expectation that every single athlete's out there because they just want to be the best, or they want to achieve the highest level possible. And there's certainly, the individuals like the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans who exude that. And so many people take that and say, I want to be like that. And yet, if you're somebody who it's just, there's a level of joy associated with doing this thing and I just absolutely love doing it, then you're not, it's not a one or the other, but it's like you're going to have a different drive for it, and you're going to be willing to sacrifice different things, I would imagine.
Right. Well, the great example of what you're talking about is Indiana's football team this year. I probably shouldn't say that on a Badger type podcast.
It's okay. I mean, it's okay.
But,
We
I mean,
here's
is he
here's the
not
thing though. We like Indiana because, hey, you guys were struggling for decades,
Yes.
and you get this great coach that builds this amazing culture. And well, as an entrepreneur, as a culture community
Right.
builder, owning a gym, I feel like there's so much positive to be learned from Kirk Signetti and what he's doing
Well,
with
yeah.
that
I
football
mean,
program.
and somebody he was a two-star athlete. Is that right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many schools didn't recruit him? I mean, he's the ultimate person who was it Joy he started out with? No, well, yes, but he wanted to play in a Division One. Just somewhere that wasn't the Ivy League, I think. So I mean, it's all different ways, but again, you go back to who if you're listening and you're a coach and you're coaching if you're coaching that guy and he wants to be the best and you're just trying to get him to have fun, he's not going to like you. Like, I can't really imagine if I was Caitlin Clark, like if Lisa Bluter said, "Oh, it's okay, Caitlin. Come on, we're just having a great team here and we love each other, and isn't it just great to be on a team and have so much fun?" She would have said, "I'm
I'm out.
transferring." Yeah.
I'm out.
But another kid, maybe, not all of Lisa Bluter's teams play in the WNBA. So what about the one that was just getting her education paid for and enjoyed playing? Joy. And
Yep.
I've made a mistake before with that early in my career, and would try to coach a person who wanted to just be there with the team, help us do well, wanting them to be better. You can be first team Big Ten if you do this and this and this. I don't really want to do that. I'm going to be a dentist. I don't
Yeah.
really want to do that. I'm going
Yeah.
to. This is kind of like for right now, and so you have to know that if you're the coach, but you have to know that if you're the athlete. Like, why are you playing sports? Why are you doing this? Not because it's not going to work very good if it's just because your dad made you or your mom made you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people dropping out, quite honestly, in junior high school because their parents made them play, or AAUs. They had to play too much, and they're sick of it, and so it can backfire. It can go either way.
Yeah.
But it's all a process, and it goes back to that's the journey, not the destination.
Right.
And the journey that sport can take you on is like no other journey. I can't really imagine my life how it would have been without this journey of sport, and just my opportunity that I had with it to combine my faith and figure out who I was at an early age.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing, I think. So for you, and we're rewinding the clock now a lot, but for you as a player coming out of college, was it a no-brainer, this is the direction I'm going? Like what process did you go through? Did you even
Well, that's a
attempt
great question.
other
Now,
things?
you do need to know this is before Title IX. So let's just, first of all, listeners, Title IX was passed in '72.
Okay.
That said you have to let the little girls play, or we're gonna take your money away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So there's gonna be some scholarships, but there were none. So I didn't really know. Like a little girl that's watching Big Ten Network today, and they're watching whoever, they might think, oh, she might say, I can grow up and be like that. There was none of that.
Sure.
So I'm like a tomboy, which at the time, I was just a tomboy. It wasn't anything bad or good. I didn't think I was a boy. I didn't want to be a boy. I just liked to do boy things, play, right? And so I'm always on a team, but I was that person who just liked being on a team.
Okay.
If it was, whatever season, I just liked having 12 or 15 of us that, and then trying to work towards a common goal. And no one really knew basketball well enough back then, women-wise, to teach me the X's and O's and what I need to do. So I like basically, play in college just, again, because I worked hard. And I can remember I went to KL's camps and worked them and stuff and got to know her. She was from North Carolina.
Okay.
And so when I got my high school job, which I coached and taught for 4 years, I'm like, what do you do? What am I supposed to do? I have no idea what to do. So I remember calling Norland Finch, who actually was on the staff with Kay at State, and just saying, what do you do with the guards? Like, I've never looked at what did they do at the other end of the court when we were down there working on our post moves. And so she helped me. She drew out some things, and there was no internet, so I bought books, and I just had to learn. And I would go see different coaches and, talk to them. But then, the way my life changed is the Lord opened the door, and I got to go work for Pat Summitt.
Yeah.
So there I learned basketball.
Right.
All of a sudden, I was not in love with basketball when I coached at my years in high school. I was in love with the team and how it worked, and how to just all day long. I thought I was going to be a teacher my entire life.
Okay.
But all day long, I waited for my team to come. I just looked at the clock to see when's my team coming. When they came, I never knew what time it was. I was in this zone of, this is just poetry. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, now we have a word for them. That's flow, right? You were just in flow constantly as a coach.
It looks
That's
good.
amazing.
Like this girl, she couldn't do her left-handed layup, and now she uses her left hand. And this is like, oh man. But strategy, those things, I had no clue. Unless I read it in a book that I bought from, and Dean Smith or John Wooden or somebody like that.
Sure.
No woman had written a book at that time.
Yeah.
So, but I worked for Pat, and I just downloaded for 2 years probably every word she said. And so now I have a skill set of knowledge that I love basketball. I love it. I love how it works. I love pick and rolls. I love, Dick Bennett's, I love it all. It's all just, his pack defense is just strategy, Pat says, get in the passing lanes tonight. Dick Bennett says, oh, no, you play pack, you sit back. So there's all these. It's great. It's the greatest sport. But you have to know that, and then you have to know people. You can't have one or the other.
Right.
But that's basically when I started understanding the game, and then I combined it with my love for teams. That's how it just naturally flowed into a career. And my love of kids and people and families and recruiting, education. Again, it goes back to education, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's it, right? People are, whether we realize it or not, people are seeking what you saw, what you experienced in the high school basketball realm, where you didn't yet know what you wanted to do.
No, I did not. You're correct. I want to be a veterinarian, which which
animals don't talk.
Exactly. You don't know what is wrong with this dog, so you go pay somebody a lot of money to tell you what's wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a different time then, but a lot of things were the same. Things were different, but things were the same.
Well, humans haven't changed.
Right.
And I think that's one of the big things too, when I think about, and I've had conversations with other former athletes about this idea that there are definitely different categories of former athletes. There are the athletes who have made tons of money, and they can wake up in the morning and go, yeah, I'm good. My bank account's set. I don't need to make any more money. I'm solid. But that's never going to make them happy when they wake up in the morning and go, oh, my bank account's full. I'm happy. I'm good. They need to find a purpose. But there's also those individuals who, and again, women's basketball, I think, being a great example of it, they're leaving the sport, and thank goodness for coaches like you who were instilling in them, hey, have a purpose outside of the sport. Be a person first, a student second, and an athlete third, because sport ends. And then what are you going to do if you don't have an idea?
The air's not going to bounce in that basketball for the rest of your life, right?
It's not going to keep going. And if you're focused on where I think right now or today, to me, the joy versus excellence thing is huge, because I love listening to and reading about, people finding happiness and true happiness. And I've even, I journaled on something and meditated on something recently, is like, I got in my head this idea of joyful purpose. Mm-hmm. Because to me, happiness it's almost like it's not enough. I want to have people excel to the level of joyfulness.
Absolutely. And there's a big difference between happy and joyful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast itself. Jared, let's go back to what you just said and then combine that. We got to get a little John Wooden in here.
Okay. And by the way, so you sent me that picture of John, which we'll probably put somewhere in our podcast notes. I just want you to know, it's right here. Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success. It's right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was working, when I was the coach at Wisconsin, Corey Close was the graduate assistant at UCLA, and I had been a John Wooden. I don't know. Even when in the 70s, he was like, oh my gosh. So he was like, I had a crush on him, I guess, and a coaching crush. So I say to Corey one day, and you might recognize that name, Corey Close, because she's now the head coach at UCLA. So she'll
okay.
come to, so that's her, right?
Yeah.
So we're eating lunch one day, and I say to her, do you know Coach Wooden? You're from, UCLA. And she goes, well, yeah. He goes to my church, and I was like, can you get me in his place? And she said, yeah, I'm sure I could. So Sue Simrown was my assistant at the time, and Corey,
Now, hang
pretty
on.
much.
Let me just catch us. Where were you coaching at that time?
Wisconsin.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So Corey, we had those big camps of like 400 people. Back then you had a lot of athletes who wanted to come, learn from Bucky. And so Corey and Sue and I, we met Corey out in LA. We went to Coach Wooden's house and basically got to spend the day with him. And then because I'm that person, I just said, I started writing him and calling him and going out to see him once or twice a year for about the last 15 years.
Okay.
The team that like Kyle Black and them were on, we played out at Pepperdine, and he had dinner with us. So they got to ask him questions, and that was a pretty amazing thing. But at the time, that would have been about 98, maybe 97.
Okay.
But Kyle, her team, actually, she might have been it might have been her 5th year when. Well, it doesn't really matter. But my point is, they didn't know who Coach Wooden was because they had never, So I'm like, well, you go home and you ask your parents, and then come back to practice tomorrow because we're going to have dinner with him. And then they come back, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
But Coach Wooden, he won his national championships. He's the most amazing man. But his definition of success, he says, is a direct result of knowing that you've done the best you can do to become the best you're capable of becoming. Mm-hmm. So so he did his pyramid of success. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what that is, just Google it and read it and study it. And then if things aren't working, just go back to the pyramid, because there's a reason. It's somewhere in that pyramid. His cornerstones, industriousness, which is just a fancy word for hard work, and enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. Those two things, it's just an amazing thing, but it talks about success, and he's defining it different, not winning a national championship. One of the first questions I asked him when I had my little Franklin planner there was, how will I know I'm a great coach? And he said, Jane, you won't know till 20 years after you coach the kid. And I'm like, I didn't really want to hear that. I want a press or something.
We all want the answer right now.
Oh yeah,
right
come
now.
on. But it's true. That's the truth. And sometimes it doesn't even take the 20 years. Some of them you can hit more about the 10-year line. They'll call you and you'll actually be a person to them. But that definition of success, if you've done your best, sometimes the other team's just better, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to hang your head and just, it's just, life shouldn't be like that. And even in a job, you go out to get a job interview, and sometimes you won't get the job because maybe the person's more qualified.
Right.
And then what do you do? How do you react to that? Does that mean you're not successful? No. If you've done the best you've done to become the best you can do. Like, on a basketball team, you've got some of them that are faster, quicker, some of them that are slow, but more skilled. There's all these different, but you can't. So when you're always, there's a quote, and I don't know who said it originally, but it was, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
So you go back to that joy and purpose. If you're comparing yourself, to somebody's social media account or something, and you're thinking, do I have, have I done that? Oh, how old are they? Have I done? You're always going to be miserable. Yep. Just try to be the best you can be at what you're doing, whether it's basketball or being a mail person or a beautician. Right. You'll figure it out. I encourage whoever's listening, you can do it. Just keep on keeping on.
Well, and I think that's a great message, because persistence is a huge piece, in my opinion. There's far too much just jumping around from thing to thing to thing.
Yes.
And far too many examples in all aspects, from business to athletics to personal relationships, of staying the course. Those that do ultimately are the most successful.
Yes.
However, with whatever metrics you want to define it by. And what I was alluding to a little bit with the joy versus excellence piece is I feel as though there's just a lot more, and this even goes back all the way to the player of yours that was an accountant and you knew she's gonna be miserable, is this idea that I have to chase excellence in a lot of ways is connotated with what makes the most money.
Yes.
As opposed to what am I going to actually be able to come home to my family and say, I had a great day today on a more regular basis, right? There's going to be days that just are terrible, that everything drags you down, and you have to be real about it, that's just going to be the case. And that's where I think athletics also helps too, is that, win or lose, you keep going. But for that woman to be able to come home on a regular basis and feel like I did something better for the world today with my job, and I can be proud of that.
Right.
That's so much more rewarding and going to give her so much more life fulfillment than the accounting job that made more money. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who love being an accountant. I have
an accountant, and he's awesome, and
I have
I
a friend.
need him very
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
So I'm not putting that down. Some people are wired to like that.
And my friend is, and it's funny because she's a huge sports fan, and she's the absolute epitome of, if you talk to her, you'd have no idea she's an accountant because of how she's wired.
Right.
But for her, there's some level of satisfaction and purpose in her life to be able to do what she does for people.
Yes.
That gives her that cup being filled, and allows her then to go and pursue travel and pursue sporting events and all these things that are a ton of fun for her. But I would guarantee that even in the midst of right now, it's tax season right now, and this is going to be airing when we're recording it. But she's going through the grind and doing the work, but there's still purpose and joy behind, or at least for fulfillment.
I have people that I've coached that are accountants that are the happiest people. They've invested well, and they've done great things with their money. And I just think that it's each person. We're all different, and if it's like if the eagle tries to be a chicken, or the chicken tries to be, you just got to be who you are with that aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that I call it N equals 1. And you already mentioned it too, the whole idea of a lab. But to me, this whole life is just one big experiment. You are your own I am my own person. You are your own person. Anybody listening to this, they're their own person. You gather information, and then you try things.
Right.
See what works, what doesn't work. And also too, I'll add this too, and I think that you would agree with this based on just what we've said thus far, is you have to see things through. I find too many times people try things, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying I'm perfect either. I've certainly done this, but you try things and you quit before you really give it a full chance to have the effect it can have. And it ultimately might not be positive, but there's a lot to be learned from your mistakes, from your failures, that will help you and serve you well as you move forward.
Well, there's an old saying, gradually, then suddenly. So, you've got someone, the Olympics are coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, think of all the gradually, practice, and then all of a sudden they've got those skiers 3 minutes, 2 minutes, suddenly they're a gold medal.
Yep.
It didn't happen quickly, but if you don't go the course with it, you never know.
Well, there's no overnight success, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Jane, this has been fantastic. I love talking to you. And I mean, I imagine you could just tell stories for days. But I also want to make sure, so again, this podcast being what it is, former athletes listening and individuals who who value your insight and your coaching knowledge, are there good ways to connect with you at this point? Like, what are the best ways for people to get in
Oh,
touch with
yeah,
you?
there's a
To just
super easy way. I've got email. I mean, I've got a little Instagram account. I mean, I've got the same phone number actually have since I had from Nevada, but probably the best way would be janiegal1 at mac.com. So Janie Gal is a term my aunt called me Janie Gal. So Janie Gal, the number 1
okay,
at mac.com, and should go straight to my mailbox. And I've got a little Christian bookstore. It's called Things Above.
okay,
It's in Graham, North Carolina. We've got a web page, and you also can go on that web page and send me a message. I check that, and you know, that's I'd love to hear from anybody.
cool,
When I was at Wisconsin, there were a lot of people that we just really loved a lot of people up there. Love Badger ball, and I think that the last thing I would like to say is that if you're coaching or if you're playing, if you've done it without love, it's gonna not mean anything. My heart is still warmed at the wonderful things people did for me up there, and when I was frozen and in that cold country, but if you're not really enjoying it with some type of care and love and loving each other and doing it the right way, it's really kind of for nothing. So keep up the great work up there, and go Badgers, go Packers, and I'll be watching from down here. And occasionally it's kind of funny. Someone will come in my bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a coffee shop, and there was a lady in there, and she's talking, and I have I have 2 Wisconsin chairs in there. I've got chairs from everywhere I coach. So I've got
Okay.
one from Wichita State, Northern Illinois, and University of Nevada. And this lady comes in, and she's like, "Wisconsin, why do you have a Wisconsin chair?" And I said, "Well, I coached up there." And she's like, "Oh, I'm from Randolph, Wisconsin." I said, "Randolph? Do you know Amy Wiersma? Amy Wiersma, Juanita is my next door. I know her, yeah." So we have this whole big. So every time she comes down now, she brings me cheese curds.
Nice.
About once a year,
Nice.
there'll be a basket, like a bag of cheese curds there. And so it's a small world. If you're
Yes, it
ever in
is.
North Carolina, find me. Things Above. It's in Graham, North Carolina. And again, I think the website is thingsabovenc.com.
Okay. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes so that people can go there and reference
But
that.
before
and
I
check
hang
that
up,
out,
I'm
too.
going to do something really weird and ask you about this book that I just read that I think is the best book I've read in Theo of Golden. So if
Theo
you're
of
listening to this
Golden.
podcast, and I'm probably going to be the 10th person that's told you about this book. No, it's read that book. Just get it. It's an amazing fiction book, but it's feel good. I think it's probably going to be the best-selling book of the year. It's I can't even get it from the publisher right now. They're all sold out. I think you probably could find it on Amazon. I got one the other day for one of my friends. We went over there because just looking for one, and they had one.
Okay.
So Theo of Golden by
Theo of
Alan
Golden.
Levi. Oh yeah.
Alan Levi. Got
And
it.
you can send me a report on your book report, and I'll grade it.
I get a book
with
report
red
to
ink
do?
pen and
Yes.
send it
Homework.
back to you with an A+. You might name your next dog Theo, though. I'm warning you.
Well, I'll tell you right now, my dog Benny, he's laying right here. He's going to be the only dog we have for a while, hopefully. So.
Well, my dog's name's Wooden, and he was the reason I came into this room was he was in there barking because he thinks it's time for him to eat supper, which is not really, but he's going on 17, and he has trouble with time, so I just let him eat when he wants to.
That's fair. Well, hey, Jane, thank you for the conversation.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to The Human Athlete. These conversations remind us that who we are beyond sport matters just as much as who we were in it. If this episode made you think or helped you see your own story a little differently, share it with someone who might need to hear it. I'm Jared Markowitz, and until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep finding ways to win the game that matters the most, life.